Where all your tabs go, everywhere you go. There's no place like Chrome.
Hey everyone, Greg Staley here from Diverge Media. We're very excited to bring you this next interview. I apologize if there's any issues with connectivity, but our next guest is marching all across Canada, and we're going to bring him in. That is James Topp. So James is undertaking a mammoth march to end mandates, and we're going to discuss more of what he's set out to do and what led him to take on such a mammoth task. But without further ado, let's welcome Canadian Armed Forces veteran, James Topp.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, really good.
Perfect. All right. So, James, I thank you so much for joining Diverge Media, especially I know you're out marching currently. So just for people that don't know, James, you can follow what he's doing on Canada Marches. He has a live GPS tracker. You can actually see what kind of distance he's covering. But let's just kind of back up here, James. I just want to kind of give people who maybe haven't heard your name a 15,000-foot view right back to the mandates coming into place, and then your choice of protest with the uniform on, and how that kind of spun into marching from Vancouver to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Ottawa, and you are closing in on that distance. So just take it away.
Sure. Well, to back it up a little bit further, I'm Armed Forces service member, still serving, actually. I had gone from the regular Army, regular full-time Army, where I was 24/7, to the Reserve Force, which is basically part-time. In 2019, I transferred over to the Reserve Force. So I still serve in the Canadian Armed Forces, and then that allowed me to pursue a career in the public service. So I became a public service employee, where I was employed as a civilian by the RCMP. It was a great job. And that would have been in March of 2021 where I was hired, doing the job as a facility manager and in Chilliwack, British Columbia. So we had the announcement of mandates for federal government workers. We in August of 2021 of last year, and then they were put into place in November. My primary objection to these mandates is what I feel is an abuse of government authority and them telling me what should be, first of all, why I should disclose aspects of my medical status and why I need to have something injected into me to stay healthy. I don't think they have the authority to tell me how to be healthy or what I should put into my body. So that's my primary objection. I felt so strongly about the violation ethically, morally, and legally. Well, before I get there, I should say, November I was placed on leave without pay from the public service. And then I was also informed by my chain of command in the armed forces at the reserve unit that I'm at that I would be released.
I apologize, everyone. It sounds like James is just cut out there. Sorry, James, you just want to continue? There's just whatever you just said in the last few sentences there cut out. So if you could just pick off.
Yeah, no worries. There might be a bit challenge for connection here. We're just outside of Sudbury, so I'm not sure what you caught or not, but I'll just reiterate. I was told by my chain of command in the armed forces at the reserve unit that I would be released administratively from the armed forces due to my failure to comply with the Chief of Defense Staff directive, and it would be released on an item code 5F. So, did you catch all that?
Yeah, we're good on that. So
okay.
Basically, you were in the reserves. You served full time in the Canadian Armed Forces before that as a full-time soldier. You had transitioned into the reserves, and then the mandate came down the pipe. So the mandate, it was essentially get it or be dishonorably discharged is the phrase that people not in the force would understand. And so they threatened that, and then you went public with your protest. Basically, my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, after those orders came down that you would be released based on this decision.
Yeah, it didn't happen immediately. However, like I wallowed in self-pity for a couple months. And during that time, because I get a pension from my full-time, when I was in the Army full-time, because I got 28 years doing that stuff, and I get a pension that was enough to pay my mortgage, but I still needed income, right? So I ended up getting a job as a tow truck operator in Hope, BC, where I live. And, it just opened my eyes to a number of different things. And, I came to see how, difficult it can be for folks in the Canadian public to make ends meet, because I had kind of been cocooned in the armed forces and not, sometimes you're shielded from the vagaries of the economy, if you know what I mean. So anyway, that went on for a couple of months, kind of didn't know what to do or how to address the situation. I felt there was an injustice there. And then, we saw happen in January with regards to the truckers and the protests that happened in Ottawa, what they're calling the Freedom Convoy now, and the birth of this so-called, or for lack of a better term, Freedom Movement. And, it inspired me. It was amazing to see the Canadian public coming together, basically of the same mind I was on the whole situation with everything that's happened in the last 2.5 years now. And what, At the same time, I was also inspired by the veterans that had gone there to stand with those members of the public who were protesting all of this. I was outraged at the way that they were treated and ignored. And that is kind of what, got me into the frame of mind where I was going to, speak out now on what I thought was what the Canadian public was probably unaware of, and how a lot of our members of the armed forces are actually being treated with regards to their this kind of administrative release if you didn't bend the knee and submit to these procedures, right? So that's where we enter into where I decided to put my uniform on. I made a TikTok video. I went to a rally to find a reporter. I found a videographer instead. He did an excellent job of capturing everything I needed to say. I made the announcement that I object to the government policies and these mandates. And I made the announcement that in protest I'm going to march across the country. And when I get to Ottawa, I'm going to go to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. So that brings us to February 20th is when we left Vancouver. We've been doing this for 115 days. And there's been a number of things that have evolved over the course of this march. And I can explain that and get it into detail if you wish.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to go over the logistics of the march itself for people that don't understand the undertaking. So you said 115 days now, James?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is day 115 from leaving Vancouver. You're in Ontario currently. For people following along, check where James is on the GPS Live. So you did this trip, you undertake it, and you're covering, it was 45 to 60 kilometers a day?
That's
and
right.
11 hours of hiking, right?
Yeah.
So about 6 clicks an hour, roughly.
Yeah.
Sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the terrain. So just before people even grasp that you're going to Ottawa to protest these mandates, I think it's important to understand the undertaking you've taken on, and you've committed to, and you're doing, and you're closing on that final leg of the journey. So 50 to 60 kilometers a day. I can't imagine what your feet are like, although I've listened to some other videos, and the conditioning early on that you talked about, and kind of the feet not being used to those kind of marches and having to adapt over the first little bit. But you're closing in on the final distance. I mean, how many kilometers do you have left, and how many days of marching do you expect? And you're supposed to arrive, is it on the 22nd, to speak with politicians regarding this? You have various MPs that have agreed to meet you in Ottawa. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. So the 22nd is when I'm actually meeting with some members of parliament to discuss the mandates and the issues that have resulted from the mandates. And the reason why we are going on the 22nd, because way back when we started this, I wrote a letter because it became a lot of questions were asked of me. Okay, so what are you going to do when you get to Ottawa? And I needed to really think about that. And the whole thing was that, this is a protest march, and I'm going to appeal directly to a House of Commons because I had nowhere to go with my chain of command in the armed forces. The Public Servants Alliance of Canada, the union, wasn't going to take up any fight for me. So, I felt that I needed to appeal right to the federal government itself. So we wrote this letter, sent it out. We agreed on the 22nd. That was just a placeholder date at the time. And there was, a couple of miscalculations. Bottom line is we're actually going to march in to the War Memorial, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, on the 30th of June. But in order to keep our meeting, with the invitation that has been extended to all of the MPs that we have contacted, we're going to drive in from wherever we are and have the meeting on the 22nd and then drive out to where we stopped and continue the march. All good?
Gotcha. So you're in Sudbury currently, or just past Sudbury, and
Well,
so
no, we're coming up on it.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So 22nd was originally a placeholder date, and
Yeah.
then it just logistically wasn't thought through, maybe all the details and what goes into a distance that far. And so you'll be driving in on the 22nd, coming back out, and then marching in with. My understanding is you've invited people to participate in the march into Ottawa. Some MPs have agreed to join you, and you plan on leading an organized march into Ottawa.
Okay, so no, that's not how it's going to work.
Okay.
I haven't invited them to march with me. I've invited them to a meeting because this march is serving as a mechanism to get their attention, and the meeting is about solutions to the current problem. So it's a meeting. It's not a march. They're not marching with me. I never envisioned that. If they wanted to, I wouldn't turn them away. But it's actually a meeting where I and a handful of people, including a medical expert and hopefully a legal one, with me to discuss the solution to what we have in place right now, is where we have millions of people out of work due to these mandates. So what we're going to have the meeting about has been outlined, and you can find it on canadamarches.ca. And we're calling it the 3+1 R's because, first of all, I sent a letter to members of parliament. I've told them exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. There's 3 reasons. It's protest. I'm speaking for everybody who lost the job, and I'm also speaking for everybody who had to submit to this medical procedure because they were threatened with losing their paycheck.
Yeah, and I want
so
to
that's the 3 reasons. Sure.
Sorry, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so those are the 3 reasons, and then I invited them to attend a meeting to discuss a solution to that problem. So yeah, what were you going to say?
Yeah, just on the coercion. I mean, people often say, well, it wasn't an ultimatum, but it essentially was. It was either you get this or you're placed on unpaid leave. A lot of people are forced into a position where they technically still have a job, but they don't have a job. They can't go to it. There's still these restrictions in place. Now, I just want to get your comments because it's in the news today. Trudeau's ending of the domestic mandate on flying and trains for people that are unvaccinated. Just what your thoughts are on that lifting. And obviously it doesn't apply across the board. So I'm curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually been asked that already. I had an interview with Rebel News just yesterday. I heard about it last night. I think it is, I'm skeptical. And even if it's true, it doesn't address the fact that we still have a number of people not in, still out of a job. And like you said before, we're on leave without pay. I'm one of those people on leave without pay.
Yeah, there's many people lumped into that category, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk to them about. So that's all good. If they have, are allowing people to travel again, bravo. If you can get us back to work, maybe, you'll do a little bit more to restore this damage that's been done to our society, because this is the other thing I want to talk to them about. We have a significant divide in this country. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. And it needs to be addressed, okay? I have started this back in middle of February, been marching across the country for almost 4 months, and I can tell you right now, the folks that come to me and talk to me on the side of the roads here or at gatherings, the mandates are a secondary issue. And what they really want to talk about is how deeply unsatisfied they are with the government as a whole. That concerns me because this undercurrent of rage that is burbling is going to be further exacerbated.
Yes.
Excuse me. By the cost of living that continues to rise, house prices, and the adoption of public and private debt. So, I've been overseas a few times. I've seen what happens when you have to close off. Okay, that's what I want to hear, and it's a thing that we need to repair. So that's what we're calling the meeting with the members of 3+1Rs, repeal mandates, reinstate employees, rent restitution for wage loss. And then if you add those things up, you're going to have a repair. You're going to just begin the repair piece. Does that make any sense?
It does. Unfortunately, the audio is cutting in and out a little bit, so it's a bit rough to understand. But so I want to touch on something else. You said on your.
So what part did you not get?
It all came through pretty broken, James. I mean, we the 3 R's. We got that. I got the first bit, and then it started to kind of go from there. But you've been taking stories from across Canada during the march. I imagine you've heard a lot of things from people that have been affected by mandates, restrictions, etc. And would you like to share any of those with the audience of some of the things Canadians have shared with you? Because that was one of the things you wanted to do with your journey, and I think it's important because I don't know about you, but in my experience, I've had many conversations where somebody will admit something or how they were affected by restrictions or mandates, but they don't want to go public with it. They don't want to talk and be the person who has to be the public image to the story, because there's a lot of things that come with that. As I'm sure you've become aware that sometimes people say nasty things when they don't agree with what you're doing. And just to see kind of how that shakes out, a lot of people don't want to be a part of that. And so they see someone like yourself, they might share that story. And so I'm just curious if there's anything that comes to your mind that you think Canadians should hear.
Well, there's too much to mention here. I mean,
For sure.
I took it on board early on that this was something that we were going to do. Early on was to capture and give voice. And I'm not calling, I know they're called stories on the website, and I got to get that changed because it's actually not a story. So just jump in there if I start to cut out, because it's important that this part gets out. Okay? So you still got me?
Yep, we still got you. I'll jump in if the audio starts to cut.
They're not stories, they're personal accounts of the hardship that folks have endured as a result of these mandates. I can't pick out any one that is any worse than the other. They're all terrible, okay? But we realize that this is something we need to take with us to Ottawa. So as a part of this kind of mission that I've embarked on, that, I've been helped with, and I say we because we've been working as a team now, the folks that are with me, but we take it upon ourselves to capture these accounts and take them with us. Anybody who wants to talk about it, they don't have to give your full name. They can go onto the website, send an email if they happen to see us on the road. This has happened a few times now where we've been able to kind of do an audio recording and also capture that, because we want to take that and talk about that, because this is a demonstration of the damage that has been done. There's this disconnect, and this is part of the divide that I'm seeing, in that everybody, who thought, okay, it's no big deal, I'll do whatever, I'll tell them my vaccination status, or I'll just take the shot. It doesn't really bother me, or, they were scared into thinking that they were at risk. Nothing changed for them. But for those folks like myself who had an objection to this, and I have a number of different reasons why I object to it, and the vaccine itself is actually fairly low on the list. But the folks who went along to get along, they may not realize the extent of the suffering that has been placed on people. And we're capturing those accounts to take those to Ottawa so I can talk to these members of parliament and just give them a thumbnail of what's out there. And to be honest, so are you getting all this?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to let you talk, James, so don't bother.
Yeah, no, okay, good. To be honest, I've spoken to a number of members of parliament now, and they get it, okay? The ones who have bothered to speak to me, they understand what's happening. They have their constituencies. They've heard the horror stories. You got a death in the family, and the person is unable to fly back to wherever it is they want to go. Like I've heard this direct out of the mouths of the members of parliament. They are at, an individual level, human beings like you and I are. However, at an institutional level, there's clearly a breakdown. And I'm hoping that this journey here and taking those accounts directly to the members will cause some kind of even greater shift in the institutional thought pattern that's going on at the federal government level.
So far you've had, is it 12 MPs that have agreed to meet with you, James?
Sorry, say it again.
So far, is it 12 MPs that have agreed to meet with you?
Yeah, it's definitely 12. I think it has increased in number. There's a couple of them that are kind of waffling, and they're on and off. And it's, I don't entirely know what I don't know what the problem is. It's kind of frustrating in a way, but on another way, I think I kind of get it. They have busy schedules, and there's also this kind of, how do I put this? Within the parties themselves, things happening behind the scenes that we're not privy to that affect the way that they make decisions. So to put it into perspective, most of the members of parliament who have agreed to come and speak with us are conservative. There is one exception. There's one NDP member. We're hoping that more NDP and Liberal members of parliament will change their minds and come have this conversation, because it's entirely constructive in nature. I'm not there to bang the drum on how we got into this situation. I'm there to talk about solutions, and it's what I can do to help them influence some positive change.
Do you think there's a bit of hesitance from political parties outside, even it sounds like within the conservative establishment, the Conservative Party itself, simply because of how politicized the Freedom Convoy became, and then they see a Canadian Armed Forces veteran marching across the country in protest of mandates, and a lot of people would lump you in the same category with the Freedom Convoy. Do you think that's part of the reason these politicians, it's kind of like, I don't want to associate with that because I'm fearful of the backlash? Is that, do you get that vibe? Like, and that's why
I would
yes.
I would be speculating if I said that. However, it's a definite possibility. The thing is, like I said, there's things going on behind the scenes without the facts and the evidence. I don't want to make any kind of definitive statement. So it's evident. It's evident in what we can see now. Primarily Conservative Party members, the ones who have a bit of moral courage and integrity, step forward to say, "Yep, we'll meet with you." And I'm hoping they're going to stick to their word, because I'll tell you one thing. After 115 days, I've met a lot of folks who are anxious to see this meeting happen.
Yes.
Between myself and the Canadian public, we've contributed time, significant amounts of effort, and finances to make this meeting happen. Between the, I think we're kind of up to 15 or 16 now. And between those members of parliament, they make in excess of $1 million a year. And we have done this out of our pocket and with the assistance of the Canadian public. So they're they're getting paid by the public in two different ways, and we would definitely hope that they recognize what's happening here. Okay, they serve their constituents. A number of their constituents want to see this meeting happen.
I think it's important that it does happen, and you've obviously taken on a tremendous undertaking, and it is kind of shocking when we put this in perspective that the list is only about 12 MPs long that have agreed to meet with you over something that I don't feel should be a controversial position at this point along during COVID anymore. So it's just kind of wild to me. I can only imagine what that feels like to you, but I want to go back a little bit. You touched on your team, and I want to talk about that a little bit. So is it 8 people all together, right? Like,
well, no, we've gotten up to 12 now.
Okay.
12, including myself. But it started out with around 8. And what we had happen, so what's remarkable about this this adventure here that we're on is, despite the suffering and the hardships and strain and stress that we've all encountered, it's been a pretty amazing journey. So I went out in uniform, made the statement almost immediately. I had folks reaching out to me that wanted to offer assistance, and that has been it's been overwhelming to deal with in a little ways, but I would not have got here without their help. That's a fact. So 12 of us all together. The guy holding the phone right now, as he walked down the road, I didn't know him before February the 20th, and he's basically my right-hand man in all of this, and we've been arranging interviews, planning routes, booking accommodations. Like, this is all the things that the folks on the ground are helping with, including rotating, carrying the flag and being marchers, to show folks on the road that, we're doing this.
And that's why I wanted to touch on that, because it's not just you as much as you are the face of this march. You have a team of people behind you that have been helping you logistically. You
Absolutely.
touched on the donations across the country that have also made this possible. So it is significant that you undertook the march itself. But to me, it shows that there is broad support from Canadians. The fact that you had a team come with you and want to support you in that way, and then the donations to keep it going, to allow. And I think you mentioned in other interviews that people are putting you up in their house and doing things to prevent additional costs to you and your team too, and they're helping that way.
Yeah, and in that way, to touch on that a little bit, I don't want to let it be forgotten. There's about 20 or 30 people doing stuff for us online as well, including help us stream these interviews. They manage the Facebook pages, the Twitter, the Instagram, and do half a dozen other things online that, they don't get enough credit in all of this either. I think a lot of the time, because, if it wasn't for them, nobody, or I should say our presence wouldn't be felt online like it is right now. So
we can touch on that point a little bit. The mainstream media hasn't really covered the march at all to this point, so it's been very much independent media, bloggers, podcasters, YouTubers, etc., coming along and trying to shine a light in their own way on what you're doing.
Yeah.
So you just want to walk us through that. I think you said initially CBC had reached out early on, and you weren't prepared to kind of go through the details yet. And correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth. I
No,
apologize.
you got it. You got it.
And
You
so
got it. Yep.
you basically they haven't contacted you since that time, and no other mainstream outlets have bothered to reach out.
Yeah, we did have a bit of coverage when, okay, so we went through Regina. I think an affiliate came out to talk to us briefly because we were marching through Regina in a snowstorm. It was touched on a short piece. And we didn't really have a chance to do a follow-up interview or anything, but we invited them out, didn't bother. But that was CTV out of Regina. And then I was also highlighted in a couple of articles.
I see the Sioux didn't like to cover you too positively. So you say a couple of articles. Is that one of the ones you're referring to?
Well, the articles that I'm referring to are the fact that I did the business in uniform back in February, and that's actually not allowed, right? Like I'm being charged under the National Defense Act, Section 129, 2 counts, one for a TikTok video and one for the video that was made by Nemechuk. He has a YouTube channel called Cinematic. He does some excellent work, by the way. And basically, it's erroneously reported that I'm being charged for supporting the Freedom Convoy. That's actually not the case at all. And to refer back to your earlier statement, it probably is very likely that they get a whiff of this on CTV and Global, and potentially it's a hot potato issue for them. But the fact is, I was reported that it was under investigation, and the investigation is concluded. The charges have been laid. There has been no summary trial as of yet. It's still in process. There's been no proceedings, and that's something that is ongoing. Because as it stands right now, I have a civilian lawyer out of Millar Law who's helping me with that, and it's that is what is being reported on in CTV, right? So what's funny about it is that there's no picture and no mention whatsoever that on the data that they reported that, which was probably about the middle of May, we'd been doing this for 3 months, and there was no mention of it. It's actually kind of funny.
I almost wonder if it's you don't try to put wind in the sails of the ship you don't want to take to sea, So I almost wonder if there's an element of they maybe covered the Freedom Convoy and they tried to cover it negatively, but I think the fact that it was covered even by our mainstream media very thoroughly, maybe not well, but thoroughly, it got a lot of attention. It became a world issue where everybody around the world, politicians, even people in high places, were talking about the Freedom Convoy. And so I almost wonder if there's not an element of, a Canadian Armed Forces veteran released from the forces on the mandate issue who protested in uniform. They don't want to put wind in the sails of that story, and I think that's what's going on. But again, that's all conjecture. That's all opinion. But I'll just leave it on the record.
Well, it's definite possibility. You can't deny the fact that within the corporate media, it's been a total blackout, and we're trying to appeal internationally to hopefully get the story to seep back in, because what we're doing. This isn't about, being famous or selling T-shirts or, this is about addressing a serious issue. And we're using, like I said, this march as that mechanism. And it's also this. This is something I became aware of fairly early on, how much this means to a lot of people. Like, I mean, it's important. Like, I've had that told to me many times, and I take it on board.
I think that's an understatement, James. And I you know, I kind of want to touch on you're giving a lot of people hope because you become a catalyst for something that should have been removed already. And I think people are done with the COVID, and they're done, especially with the mandates. They wanted society to stop being divided for political gain.
I
And
agree.
seeing a soldier, somebody who comes from the background of discipline and serving, I think they see you as somebody who can take the torch for them. And so you are providing, I do think, a lot of people with hope, because I think you touched on this. You put on the uniform, it grabbed attention, and hopefully there's more attention that comes. I hope that as you close in and actually meet with MPs, there is some national attention that happens on your meeting. I'm not going to hold my breath on what that coverage will look like, but I do believe it is very important what you're doing. And I just want to touch on that. Like, what does that mean to you? You start with this idea in your head, and maybe you pulled the trigger kind of on a whim, right? And maybe some emotion was involved, but eventually you sat down, you planned the route, and you started. And it's a wild thought from starting in Vancouver to now you're in Ontario. So just what was that process like mentally from I'm going to do it to, and then the realization of what was going on, all that it was going to take, and then the process itself of just marching day in, day out?
Yeah, so I wouldn't call it a whim. It was more of an instinct. It's all good. It was more of an instinct, and I just had it that there was the freedom convoy, everything that was happening there, the way it was being repressed and put down, and I just had it in my head that okay, this needed to continue in some way. But like I said, I was also inspired what they were doing. Like, I wasn't in Ottawa, and I want to make that clear to folks. I was in BC at work when I saw all that happen. But a number of things, and I'll just go back to my time as a tow truck operator. It became apparent to me as I started to see. I heard about this protest being launched by the truckers, and I was driving around a lot myself, and I started to realize just how much we rely on truckers and what they do to have the quality of life that we have. And then I started to realize, how hard the Canadian public works. It's the Canadian public that had paid for me to have a very successful career in the armed forces. Okay, and all of this kind of coalesced into this. Something more has to be done here. I see this kind of, authoritarian creep going on. And, I'm not liking it as somebody who joined to serve in the armed forces. I didn't join to be a servant. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, having said that, that was the initial spark. I looked like I spent my career marching. It was something I knew I could do. I'm light infantry, parachute qualified. That's what we did, okay? Planning missions operationally or in training, that's something I was used to. That part didn't really faze me at all. The undertaking itself, there's a procedure here, there's a method, and there's a purpose, which is why we called this marching with purpose, because we're not just marching 45 to 50 kilometers until we collapse, right? There's a process that happens every day, because if we were doing that, we wouldn't have been doing it for 150 days now. So, all that stuff,
You just cut out there for a second, James.
Still with me?
Yeah, there you go. We're back.
Okay. The challenge was to bring the folks that had come forward to assist me with this and kind of get them up to speed, because when we started this, there was just me and one other guy who had military experience. and it was a bit of a, just to bring everybody up to speed on the way we do things and plan things in the military, and then to get certain logistics into place, like we just passed by an RV that we had bought, and prior to that we had a fellow named David helping us with his RV, and we came to realize that this was something that was going to be required going forward, especially going through the mountains. We needed a kind of station to warm up, to get water, to have food, and getting those kind of pieces into place and trying to maintain the time frame that we had established. That was a bit of a challenge, but other than that, um, I have to say, it's really, that's another remarkable thing about this. A lot of this stuff just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of fell into place fairly easily. Based on previous experience, the type of folks who joined up and came forward, really easy to work with. The planning experience that myself and Christian had, among others. Just the willingness of everybody to chip in and get this job done. Nobody's getting paid money here. The donations go to putting gas in the fuel in the vehicles and food into us. So you know what I mean? Like the fact that we've kept it together for this long speaks volumes as well. But
Sorry, it definitely speaks to the level of planning and teamwork that's gone into it for sure.
Yeah, and like without them, contacting, setting, it was the online team too, helping us set up online presence, keeping in touch with folks who are reaching out to us, offering accommodations, sleep in a church basement or in somebody's house along the way. Like it just, that piece was done by with these guys on the ground and the online team, and that it came together really well. So we were able to address the logistical pieces, and I would say, like I said, the biggest challenge was the conditioning phase. Getting some terrain issues, especially going through Crow's Nest Pass, late winter, early spring, back in British Columbia. I'm not sure if your viewers are familiar with the area. We had to bypass one route because there was no place to walk, and so, we kind of owe you on that. And I had said I'm going to make that up in Ottawa, marching around the city, and more than likely it's going to happen. So we'll see how it goes. But really, the whole thing has come together in an amazing way, and and it continues to work really well. Like the assistance we've got online with our setting up, the merch shop. A little bit of turbulence, but we got it sorted out. Folks want to be a part of this. They want to contribute. Get the opportunity for them to have a T-shirt at the same time, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it also helps brand awareness, and that people see the shirt and they ask questions. So there's that element of it too, right?
Exactly.
So I got maybe one or two more questions for you, and I want to let you get some rest. I know you've been doing interviews probably all day and then throughout the week and et cetera. So you're closing in on the end of the journey here. You got a great team behind you. So you got 12 MPs that have so far agreed, but obviously I have to ask the question. I think Theo did, Theo Fleury. Pierre Poilievre, has he agreed to meet with you? And I asked the question because he's running on freedom, and he's more than likely to be the next conservative leader and probably prime minister of this country. So has Pierre Poilievre agreed to meet with James Topp in regard to ending the mandates?
No, I think that, so just bear with me for a second. Did we get an answer from Pierre Poilievre? preliminary?
We sent 4 letters. His office said that he has received the letter, but he never gave an answer.
So we never actually got an answer. Um, and the same thing with Candice Bergen said no, they will not meet with us. And so there's been no answer. There's been numerous emails and communications sent. But Roman Baber is coming to meet with me tomorrow in March for an hour or so. And we actually have a joint meet and greet going on in Sudbury tomorrow.
Okay, so Roman's doing a meet and greet alongside you then, kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So if people want to check that out, you'll be in Sudbury tomorrow. Will that be posted to the Canada Marches?
Yeah, it's on the website, and I believe there's been a poster put up on the social media platforms.
Okay. So if you're in Sudbury tomorrow, James will be there as well as Roman Baber, and you can do a meet and greet with both of them. So if that's something that interests you, check out canadamarches.ca. You can also follow James live on GPS trackers, see where he's at and the team. And so I just want to say a special thank you to the team and all the people behind the scenes that have been helping. Christian, our communications were flawless and very professional, so thank you for that. Is there anything you want to leave anybody with, James? Is there something you feel is important that Canadians know about this march? Again, just to cap for people, just shy of 4,300 kilometers, Vancouver, British Columbia, to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Ottawa, and then you're going to have that meeting with elected officials on the 22nd, march into Ottawa on the 30th. So big things coming down the pipe. Is there anything you think Canadians need to know?
Yeah, I think it's important for them to realize that, I understand that with the gradual withdrawal of some of these restrictions and mandates, it would appear that, okay, well, things are slowly but surely going back to the way we remember them. And I would just like to point out that it's good. I'm not saying it's not good that we can't travel, okay, by airplane or by train. Does it apply to trains?
I think it applies to both. Yeah.
Okay. Regardless, let's not forget that this is more than likely something that's just been slowly cranked up and is still hanging over our heads in a way. And I still think we have a lot of work to do with regards to ensuring that we don't suffer this kind of abuse of power again. And having said that, I think it's important for Canadians to educate themselves and get to understand their own governments, because I have to admit that when I said I'm going to write to members of parliament, I didn't know how many members of parliament there were, right? I found that out as I was doing it, and it was shocking to me how much I didn't even know about how my own government functioned. And I think this has been one of the things that has been banked on by the folks in high office, is just the level of disengagement that we actually have in the voting population. They don't care, and it's not because they're bad people. They've just been disenfranchised, right? Like they see their votes not doing anything. And I'm here to tell them that you can make a change. It takes a little bit of work. It takes a bit of perseverance, and I can point to what we're doing right here, right now, because we've had members of parliament reach out to us. And do you want to just ask them if they're okay with being in the shot? We've had members of parliament reach out to us because their constituents have heard about what I'm doing and prodded them to come and meet with me. You know what I mean? So that is what I would kind of leave it at.
I think it's a very important march. It's well past due that these mandates get ended. So it's a step in the right direction today with the end of domestic restrictions. But like you said, and I think that's the part that gets missed, is all the infrastructure is still in place for these things to come back into place. And they have a habit of lingering. But we'll close. James has got a group of people looking to meet with him. So thank you, James, for joining us for interview, and all the best in the final leg of your journey.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for what you do, because it's this kind of independent journalism and media that I think is going to get us out of this. And I appreciate you give me the time to be on your show.
Thanks, James. All right, everyone. That was James Topp of Canada Marches. Go to canadamarches.ca. We're just going to pull up the website. I want you to be able to see the website. Again, this is the GPS live tracker. You can follow James on his journey. You can see where he's at, where he's going to be. 22nd, he'll be meeting with MPs. On the 30th, he'll be marching into Ottawa. I believe there's more information on that on the website. So check out the website. It gives details about what he's doing, why he's doing it. He's undertaking 2,600 kilometers of marching. He has a team, or just under 23. What is it, 26, 23? Oh, I'm way off. 2,600 miles, just under 4,300 kilometers. And he's taken that on. He had just one person helping him when he kicked it off. And now he's got a team of 12 people, including himself. And so just unbelievable. The mainstream media has been a complete blackout in regard to James Topp and his story. He was a soldier forced into a situation regarding vaccines and mandates where they were going to release him over that. And that touches closer to home than I'd like to admit. I, too, asked for a release from the Canadian Armed Forces Reserves when the COVID shots were being discussed. I had a feeling that they were going to be mandated because that's typically what happens is soldiers are on the line first for those kinds of things. And I asked for a release to do media full time. And so, because you can't cover politics when you're in the military. So kind of crazy roundabout way. I asked for a release over mandates. And then 2 years later, roughly, I end up interviewing a guy in the same boat who's marching from Vancouver to Ottawa to protest those same mandates. Unbelievable story. CanadaMarches.ca, James Topp. He'll be arriving on the 22nd to talk with MPs. 30th, he'll be marching in Ottawa. Check out his work at CanadaMarches.ca. I'm Greg Staley, and until next time.